Hello guys, welcome back to the new episode of Road to Redis. This episode is the continuation part of Redis Streams. In this episode, we will be learning about using Redis Streams through C++ code. So let's directly jump into our code editor and see how can we use basic commands of Redis Stream using a C++ code. So now let's take a look how can we call a basic command of Redis Stream, which is xadd. So now let's call a function called xadd, through which we will be adding our data into our Redis stream. So now let's see, we need a key and an ID and an initializer list, or we can say data, which we will be inserting in our Redis stream. So first of all, let's define our variable which contains the name of our stream key. So let's say it's a string type, or we can say stream key, and let's name it as user data C++. So now let's pass this key into our xadd function, and as we know that it requires a ID. So we can pass our own ID from our code directly, or if we don't want to pass the ID, so we can just pass asterisk, which can generate ID on its own in a Redis stream database. So let's say we will be passing a asterisk, and then it requires a data, which is an initializer list. So let's pass a data, and let's create a pair of strings which are the actual data which will be inserting in our Redis stream. So let's say std make pair, and let's add a value, let's say name and Ahmad, and let's add one more record in it. So in our single key, so the single key in Redis stream, as we know, that contains a list of key value pairs. So now let's add age, let's say 28, and let's declare, or we can say, sorry, let's duplicate the line again, so we can add another record. Let's change a little bit or tweak a little bit of data, so which, and let's add this, and let's save our code. So now when we run build, so it will build the code, and when the code build has been complete, so we need to run the code, so it will not printing anything at the moment. So we can verify using a Redis CLI or Redis GUI to check that our data get inserted or not. So let's open a Redis CLI, and let's say first check the keys that it contains our key or not. So we can see that there is a user data C++ key is present. So let's say use xread count, or let's say we have two records of data, and let's say streams, which is user data C++, and let's say 0 to start reading from the beginning. So when I will hit enter, so we can see that we have, when we run the code, it entered our data into our Redis stream. So now let's take a look to another basic command, which is xread. So before using xread, we just need to see the data, how the data is printing on Redis CLI, so we can have a little bit of idea to create a data structure in which we will be going to store the data which we'll be getting using an xread command. So let's take a look first that there is a key, which is user data C++ of string type. Inside it, we can see there is a list of keys which are of timestamp. And inside those timestamps, there are a list of data in a form of pairs, as we have inserted in a form of pairs. So now we have a little bit of idea that how we will be creating our data structure in a C++ code in which we can store our data. So now let's move to our editor, and let's start creating at how we will be going to create a data structure. So let's start from the base, or we can say from the like base level. Not, we are not starting from the top, we will be starting from the bottom. So let's say using, we have items in it, or we can say list of items in it, in our key. So we can see that there is a vector, or we can say a list. So we will be using a vector here of pairs, right, of a string type. So let's define it as a string, and then inside that, or we can say when we saw not an inside that, outside of that, there is a key which contains a item, or we can say a vector of items. So we can say we can say that key and key of item, and let's say std pair, which contain a string which is an offset or a timestamp value, timestamp with some offset value, and then it contains the list of items. So let's pass a list of items here. Now let's create it as small. Okay. Now when we come one step above, so we can see that there was a list of IDs. So it means key of item. We have a list of key of item. So we can say using or we can say list of keys, and here we will be creating a vector which is a type of key of item. So this is a main data structure which we will be using to store our data. So now we have to read a data in our we have a multiple streams, or we can say the xread is used to read data from a multiple streams. So now we will be using creating an unordered map, because as we know that if it's creating a data from a multiple streams, so we need a some map with a specific stream in which we will be our data is coming. So let's say we will be creating an unordered map which contains a, let's say, string and the list of keys, which is the top level of the all the timestamps, and we can say, let's say, results. So now let's call a function redis.xread, and in this we will be passing our stream key. Then the other parameter is for the, like, from where you want to start your data, like from where you want to read the data, like from the beginning, from a specific key or something like that. So now I will be passing 0 as 0, and how many amount of data, or we can say how many amount of record we want to see from the beginning. So we have only 2 records, so let's say we want to see only a single record. Now we will be using std inserter, and here we will be passing our result, and let's say result dot end. So now the issue, okay, so it's a results and results.end. So now our data will be stored in our results data structure. So now let's try to print our data so we can verify that our data is coming in our data structure or not. So let's say we will be using a range loops to print our data. So auto, we will be using an auto, let's say list of keys, let's say we will be using in a small, and let's say results. So now we will be having our results, which will be is an unordered map, and here we will be having a list of keys where we can read this list of key as a second parameter. So now we will be looping again, let's say, and now we will be say key of item, and now we will be using list of keys dot second. Now we will be looping once more, and now we will be reaching our final data, which contain this pair, which have the actual data in our Redis stream. So let's say now we will be using this we can say list of items, and let's say key of item dot, or we can say second, which is this list of items. So now we will be having the actual data which is stored inside our Redis stream. So now we will be using stdcout, or we can also do one thing here, we can directly read the pair which is key comma value. So let's say key, and let's say key and space value, and let's add the value, and let's put a breakpoint, oh sorry, line break. So now let's build our code, and let's try to run our code and see that what output is coming, the data is reading correctly or not. So the expected results would be to print this Ahmed and its age, because we are just getting single amount of data from the beginning of our stream. So now our code is completely built. So when we run the code, so we can see that the key name value, like name value is Ahmed, age is 28. If we update it to 2, then it will be reading all the record which are stored inside our Redis stream. So let's build it again, and let's try to run once more to see the results. So when I run the code again, so now we can see it's printing all the data which we have, or we can say a number of 2 records, because we have only 2 records, that's why I'm saying all the records. So it's printing all the records which we have in our stream on our terminal. So now let's take a look to another basic command, which is xrange. So xrange just read a data from a specific stream. So now we will be using our simple data structure, which is list of keys, which means the list of keys is normal your timestamp and it contains the data. So let's say we can say list of keys, and we can name it as x range results, and I think we have named it incorrectly. And now we will be just calling our function redis.xrange, which contains a stream key and start and stop. So we need to print all the data, or we can say we need to fetch all the data. So we will be using minus and plus. So we can pass minus and let's say plus. And now we need to read our data into our data structure. So we will be using std back inserter, and here we will be passing x range results. And now if we want to print and see our data, so we can do again, and we can say list of item, and let's say x range results. So now we will be having this list of items, and list of items contain this. So we will be using only 2 for loops, let's say auto, and we can say here list of key, and let's say list of item, and list of key dot second. So now we will be having all the data which we actually want to read in our data structure. So now let's use same as is, we want to read the values, and now we can just use list of item, and let's say first, and let's say list of item, and let's say second. So let's comment it out first to, or we can use like this x range key, and let's say x range value. So now let's build our code again, and let's wait for it to get built. And when we run the code, it will print all the data, because we have used plus, minus, and plus, which means read all the data from an x range. So when I will be running our code, so we can see that x range name, key name, value Ahmed, and all the data is printing using an x range command. So now let's take another basic command, and let's directly, instead of doing any fancy stuff, let's use std cout, and we can just directly call std, and we can say xlen, and we just need to give our name of our stream key, and let's say and we can do std and we can do one thing here. We can just type len to get to see your value in a finer or a cleaner way. So let's build our code again, and the expected result should be 2, because we have a 2 records in our stream. So the code has been built. So now when I print it, it print the length 2. So now let's try another command, which is redis dot x del, and now we need to pass our stream key, and again we need to pass another thing, which is an id. So let's directly go to the redis cli and directly pick an id which we have already printed before, and let's try to pass our id, and let's build the code. And once the code has been built, wait for it, and let's run the code. And after that, let's open our Redis CLI and let's try to read our stream. So now we can see that the code, or we can say that code has deleted the specific key which we have passed into our xdel command. So this is all about the basic command usage of Redis Stream using the C++ code. I hope you have guys learned a lot about Redis Streams using the C++ code. If you have any type of confusion and if you have any type of question regarding Redis Stream, you can directly put your question in a comment section. I will definitely try to answer it. So thank you guys for watching it. Please subscribe my channel, share my video, and like the video as well. Thank you guys for watching.